Hello, world builders. Welcome back to Shoutout Saturday, number 9, where I read through in full the build together prompts that have been submitted by members of the Discord. So let's get started. On day 130, we have the prompt write about the leader of an organization that is viewed by most outside it as evil or corrupt. This is technically a late prompt. Day 130 was part of last week, but Napip posted this within this week, and so I'm going to honor that, and we will read it this time. Napip writes The Dismissal. On the continent of Valnad, the ages are divided into two great epochs, the time before the dismissal and the 6 centuries that have passed since. Before the dismissal, the continent was a richer place, a world not of separate peoples, but of neighbors. Upon sun-drenched plazas of Karansite, one would witness elves teaching poetry to human children, with their commanding yet gentle presence. In the libraries of Harbi Kutla, gnomish academies would not solely inhabit the shelves, they would encompass the halls, debating philosophy and logic late into the night with dragonborn academics. Long before the white domes of the Caliphate of Sakhif shined bright, it was common to see dwarven engineers working jovially to the hum of modern tunes, hammers sweat-beaded and coveralls oil-grimed, alongside their tiefling and orc colleagues. Back when the Grist Republic was solely vast untamed steeps, highlands, and deserts, the arrival of a halfling merchant caravan was cause for celebration in any settlement. Their stories are valuable as their wares. The peoples of the Valnad intertwined. They were family, vast and diverse, woven together into the very fabric of each nation. A golden age had arrived under the watchful eye of the chroniclers. 7 talented individuals ordained with the memories and gifts of previous beholders. A child born upon the soil of Valnad, in any nation, of any race or origin, could become the next chronicler if the conditions are correct. A human from the windswept steppes of Grist can be found to be the next chronicler of logic, serving alongside a pre-existing elf from a Karansite. This divine lottery provided a constant flow of new ideas and bound the nations in a shared reverence. When a chronicler died, all of Valnad mourned, but also celebrated the renewal. A new chronicler was destined to be born, and the baby boom then followed across all nations ensured a vibrant future. The cycle had a tragic flaw. Time. The first tremor was felt when a dwarven chronicler of ethics, Curtin Felithorn, a grand jurist from Sakith, held his position for over 300 years. His wisdom was undeniable. He had attracted many followers, like many other chroniclers had done, but his reign created a gravitational pull. Ambitious dwarven clans from across the continent migrated to Sakith, seeking to serve a leader whose influence was a constant. The nation's bureaucracy became dominated by dwarven thought, their meticulousness a boon, but their permanence had hindered the diversity of thought and theory. Then came Emerald Doa, an elven chronicler of aesthetics from the kingdom of Karansite. She was a muse, a sword dancer, and a poet whose art defined an era that lasted 700 years. Under her timeless guidance, Karansite became the undisputed heart of all culture. Elves from the far reaches of Grist and Harbekutla felt the pull, leaving their homes to be near the eternal wellspring of their craft. The system began to break. These long loved and long lived chroniclers were becoming anchors of development rather than seeds. The seats of power, once a dynamic lottery, were now often held by a singular, longevous individual for centuries. The short lived races, the humans, Aarakocras, Dragonborns, and Orcs, had opportunities for their sparks of inspiration. Their own chroniclers were unable to create mites and legacies as profoundly viewed in their short time. A tiefling general from Harbikutla might rise to be a chronicler, but their 80-year lifespan was a mere spark compared to Amaril's fiery reign. Resentment, once a whispered poison, began to seep into the foundations of their diverse societies. A human artist in Karansite could never hope to achieve the status of an elf who had studied at Amaril's feet for a century. A tiefling engineer in Sakif felt their ambitions curbed by the unmoving mountains of the dwarven guilds. The problem was not one of race, but of math. A fatal imbalance in the divine cycle was threatened to tear their multicultural world apart. The crisis came to a head at the Grand Council called by the leader chronicler, Aethys Bloon, a dragonborn of incredible foresight from the Republic of Grist. It was not a council of war, but of despair. King Theron Callistus of Karansite sat beside the Caliph Sri II of Sakif and the bureaucratic heads of Harbikutla. They did not see enemies, but neighbors on the brink of a civil war born from a broken system. The solution they reached was not an act of malice, it was an agonizing decision, tearing apart to save the whole. It was a decision that had to be made to prevent future imbalance and conflict, to restore the cycle of renewal. The long-lived races, the elves, the dwarves, the gnomes, and their kin had to leave. They had to relinquish their claim to Valnad. Their lineage, their future, their next of kin could no longer have the birthright of Valnad, the opportunity to be the next chronicler. The Grand Council called it the dismissal. Heartbreak occurred across all lands, felt and seen in every city. A sight of human children weeping, seeing their elven friends, classmates, and tutors abandoning villas their families had known for millennia. It was the final wrung out clang of metal as bronzed hammers struck the nails, sealed the dwarven workshop. Tear stricken orc and tiefling apprentices watched on as their masters and mentors departed. The once jovial gnomish libraries of Harbi Kutla were profoundly silent. Their dragonborn colleagues would forever miss their thrilling debates. It was a great, sorrowful exodus that tore friendships apart and left a wound in the heart of every community, bleeding Valnad of some of its brightest souls. 600 years later, the continent lives on. The nations are as diverse as ever, populated now only by the short-lived races who remain. The seven-sided star only appears on their children. The cycle is restored, but the world is haunted by the ghosts of the peoples they lost. In the grand plazas of Karansite, they still sing the songs of Amaril, and in engineering colleges of Sakif they study the works of the dwarven engineers. They live in a world forever marked by a decision to prevent a war that never happened. Great stuff from napip, actually. I really do enjoy addressing in fantasy, high fantasy, especially fiction, this idea of very variable time frames in which different species and culture groups live. I think this is a fun way to go about doing it. All right, we'll move on to day 133, the first actual day of this week. And the prompt for day 133 was, what place does martial arts hold in your world? Is it a way of life, a relic of the past, or a hobby taken lightly? Predwin the Great once again wrote, I believe, every day this week, and he wrote for day 133, one man to break an army. The jungle lay burning in purple flame, the miasma overtaking it. Yet still, Regadamello walked forward, rolling his shoulders as he tightened the wraps around his fists. Behind him, 30 or so Murracanians lay sizzling with blackened flesh, burned by Regadamello's fists of fire. Marching forward through the foliage unhindered, Regadamello hears the man-things in the west, their machines of war engaged in a tussle over the horizon, but his help is needed elsewhere. He carried onward, finding himself looking over a large clearing. Fire raged, and his kin lay dead, surrounded by at least thrice their number in orcs and daemon pots. Good. There were some of those purple bastards, too, Murracanians. They stopped getting back up as much lately. Good. Another week of travel, and he'd arrived in the outskirts of Ud, the only lizard folk city left standing after the man-thing's misunderstanding. Ud is a mighty city built against a mountain, made of stone. A pointy, gargantuan ziggurat, still holding its own as the hell-sent besiege its walls. Good. Regadamello identified the main target. A daemon, a big one. Medieval, perhaps. He trudged forward, tightening his knuckles in anticipation. Daemons turned to him as he approached, and daemons fell as he arrived, his fist cracking their visages, sending them back to whence they came. The big daemon, a wolf one. What did the man-things call them? A reveler. Fun to fight. Anyway, the reveler turned to Regadamello, looking down on him from atop a mountain of lizard-men carcasses, and let loose a smile, an invitation among daemons when they see something strong they want to kill. Regadamello had received this courtesy many, many times. Fought his way towards the wolf fiend, punching, slashing, crushing every footman that dared to impede him. All the while the daemon taunted him, saying things in the Othrium tongue, things that Regadamello didn't bother to try understanding. Eventually, after getting his hands covered in dust, Regadamello stood before the reveler, a medieval daemon, a strong daemon that would take the combined efforts of a dozens of soldiers to banish. The beast smiles down at Regadamello, towering over him, at least 13 feet or more. Heed me, mortal. I am Kelsh. Regadamello leapt up and plunged his bald fist into the daemon's eye. The daemon wailed as Regadamello ripped out a chunk of the daemon's gray matter. Gently falling to the ground, Regadamello let the brain bits fall onto the floor of corpses as the daemon fell to its knees. Looking very irritated, now at eye level to Regadamello, the daemon reached for its great sword. Regadamello kicked it out of the daemon's grasp and grabbed it by the head, his fists heating up. With a heave, the daemon's head came from its shoulders. Raising it above the crowd, Regadamello howled his victory over the daemons. Hundreds of them were banished on the spot. Only the strongest of them remained. Good. This will be fun. Great stuff, as always, from Predwin the Great. I think he actually has a pretty solid knack for writing narrative stuff. I enjoy reading it quite a bit. Moving on to day 134, the prompt was, what are some omens of ill fortune in your world? Are they commonly held, more esoteric, or incredibly niche? Predwin the Great wrote Vestiges of Doom. For every major shift in the tides of battle, for every ill appearance, something else comes with it. A moon. At a time, the skies of turmoil were clear, bearing the axe head, and for the most part, the events of the world were mild. One dark day, an entire civilization, in desperation to rid themselves of their turmoil, made a pact. A pact with a monstrosity, a king of corruption, the writhing mountain. On that day, the skies wept for 3 months straight. Livestock fell ill, cities drowned, and people lost themselves to the darkness. And when that rain cleared, when the people thought it was finally over, something new floated in the sky. A moon. A disturbing golden sphere, cities of gold over its surface, pristine yet abandoned. When the people of Turmoil looked upon it, they knew its name, for it told them Peleus, the first moon. Centuries later, another appeared. The sky ran red, the deep hue of blood, for weeks. Every day, liquid in the sky pooled into an inky blot of crimson. 7 days later, it became unmistakable as yet another moon. It, too, told mortal kind of its name, Hazak. 3 days after it told others of its moniker, the beaches of Kamar's southern shore were overrun with orcish kind. 3 days after it told others of its moniker, the beaches of Kamar's southern shore were overrun with orcish kind. Well, it has been some time since Azak has appeared. The people of Turmoil live in fear every day that the weather will shift and something new will look down upon them, an omen of destruction. Day 135, the prompt was, write about an individual considered to be one of the smartest people in your world. Are they actually? Predwin the Great wrote, Cluthden Stormbeard Durad. Cluthden Stormbeard is considered by most everyone in Kamar to be the most genius weapons inventor in history. Cluthden's mastery over both the rituals to commune with Ophiax and to persuade it to grant him knowledge, although secret, has yielded great results. Cluthden is the current leader of Clan Drad and has been for around 300 years, although with the escalation of the war and the need for more weapons, Cluthden has been conducting more and more rituals to commune with Ophiax. The soldiers of Caldatha almost all appreciate Cluthden. Without his artillery guns and tanks, the war would be long over, with the corpse of Caldatha rotting. As such, Cluthden's works are a prized possession on the front lines, being reliable and durable weapons where something like the lackey is all too common. Cluthden also introduced the war cry of Caldatha to them, as he wrote those words, rust and vengeance, grudge and strife, on the sides of the Grag Blusim Dal artillery guns he sent to the front lines, creating a rather iconic war cry on accident. While the celestial corruption of Ophiax has begun to claim him, Cluthden is the kind of man that would sacrifice himself to a cause far greater than himself, as he continues now, locked away in his study, innovating, creating, asking. From an outside meta perspective, however, Ophiax is obviously the most intelligent being, the deity of creation and innovation. On day 136, the prompt was, how do people of a culture group honor their ancestors in your world? Predwin the Great wrote, due respect. All across Turmoil, the people have grown successful from their ancestors' sacrifices, from small ways to big. The Kartoff would not have the knowledge to survive if their ancestors had not recorded their gruesome history. The Caldathans would still be under the rule of Remexia if the Pilgrims had not decided to declare sovereignty. The Remexians, even, would all be dead if the Bleak Shore was never discovered. Faith, again, has great power in Turmoil, whether from a religious person or not. The belief people of Turmoil feel in regards to their ancestors has merit in the outside, but how does this belief manifest within the material plane? The Kartoff, who we will be looking into for this document, have several different ways to pay their respects, depending on which tribe you are investigating. Burying the entirety of a deceased tribesman is seen as the highest form of disrespect. A common practice is to keep a bone or two to bring with the tribe as they follow their route through the wastes. The different tribes have ways to incorporate these bones into their everyday life. The Westmakers often put small bones of their ancestors in ceremonial blades, typically encased in amber for the pommel of kopeshes or daggers. These blades are used almost exclusively during festivals of feast, where the Westmaker tribe manages to hunt a castle bug. The tribe leader will use the blade to ceremoniously cut into the castle bug's stomach, making the first incision before the tribesmen finish the process. The tide takers put the bones of their ancient kin into the bow of their war boats, letting their ancestors lead the way across angered waters. The faith that their ancestors will lead them through storms manifests as a glowing light that keeps their course steady through dangerous waters and guides them away from the great monsters that reside in the Hydra lakes. The wardens imbue the bone dust of their ancestors against the prison, a great door said to keep a great horror at bay. The wardens say that the strength of their ancestors keeps the beast of bone imprisoned for the rest of time, but more and more great warriors' bones must be applied to upkeep the door. It's likely that their faith plays a great part in keeping the door shut. I could go on, but I suppose these three shall do for now. Napip wrote, Burial and Ancestral Traditions of the Take, a Warrior Nation. The Eternal Memory. When a Takite passes, the culmination of their life's purpose is honored and remembered in the place that their birthright is forged. At birth, nationals of Take receive a symbolic birthright. Sons receive a 2-pound iron-forged blade, a gift from their local smith shop, their first tool, which is used to instill discipline, vigilance, and national service at a young age. As they mature, this blade can be reforged into a tool more fitting to their chosen discipline, symbolizing adaptability and resilience. Daughters receive a finely crafted fountain pen, a gift from their local college, a device to inspire creativity, aptness to learn, and to communicate and connect with others. Unlike the blade, the pen is never to be altered, symbolizing the pure and constant flow of wisdom. When a Takite passes, their birthright is enshrined in the forges from which they were given. The son's blade, or what it has been forged into, is returned to its hometown's forge. There it is adorned upon the walls, becoming a part of a growing tapestry of iron instruments. As the generations pass, the walls, ceilings, floors, and surfaces of the forge become a living monument encrusted with the contributions of generations, each a piece of story of lives lived and lessons learned. The daughter's first pen is returned to the college that had gifted it. It is reverently placed in a grand hallway, often alongside her classmates, which leads to the college's archives. Here, her individual thoughts and connections were seamlessly woven into the collective knowledge and history of her people. Her pen, a beacon of intellect, forever marked her place within the profound lineage of Takite wisdom, ensuring her legacy flowed onward, ceaseless and true, just like her brothers. Day 137's prompt was, what are the common concerns of the newest generation of adults in your world? Baldwin the Great wrote The Dead Youth. The war is raging. It escalates more and more. No man, no woman has lived past 30 in the last century. From dwarf to furbolg, the young die as such. Young. The toll of war has led countries to lower their recruitment age. At the beginning, for Caldetha, it was 18, then 16, now it's 13. The greatest concern for the newest generation is that they won't be around long enough to start another. And Nugget wrote for day 137 an entry in Petrichor. Ambrosius Lockhart sat in his study gathering notes in preparation for a council meeting later that day. He never particularly liked politics, and, in his defense, he never thought he would need to with 2 older siblings, but yet, here he was. Siblings and father dead, he was sworn into office on his 18th birthday whilst still in a hospital bed, and he just had to step up and deal with it. That was years ago, and while he still doesn't particularly like it, he has learned how to keep up with the other noblemen. Things were still looking bad, however, for everyone involved. Taxes continued to rise to fill pockets of the Second Estate, while food and bread became nearly unaffordable for some. With minimal care being put into maintaining the levees, floods in Lower Petrichor are displacing hundreds, while becoming old enough news no one else seems to care. But that wasn't entirely what was concerning him. The Third Estate was angry. They had every right to be, and they're beginning to get violent. Recently, the council has been worrying about preventing a potential revolt or even revolution, but ultimately, many are too interested in their decadence to care about fixing the root problem. While Ambrosia certainly had a lot of influence, so did everyone else in the council. The only real way to get your desires across was to partake in a game of under-the-table bribes, promises, and betrayals to get other people to at least pretend to be on your side for their benefit. He had influence, but not enough to do anything without putting his dignity on the line. They were mostly just waiting for him to die anyway. With no heirs of his own and his ever-declining health, Ambrose's death was a power vacuum waiting to happen among the aristocracy, and until then, they're being nice for a place in his will. Ambrose leaned against his chair and groaned as his husband Edward walked into the room, setting down a cup of tea on the desk and placing his hand on Ambrose's shoulder. Edward. You all right, Rose? Ambrose placed his own hand over Edward's and squeezed without bothering to open his eyes. Ambrose. Edward, you are a kind and good-hearted soul who sees only the best in people and wants a better world. Don't get into politics. They're gonna eat you alive. And finally, day 138, where the prompt was, what's a creature or monster that is considered dangerous in one place but useful in another? Nugget gave us another entry from Petrichor. While not exactly different place, but rather different time, the undead and the practice of necromancy is highly illegal in Petrichor. It's been this way for centuries, since before even the first floods. It's unknown why the rule is even in place, other than simply the undead are against nature, and that which is resting should stay that way. Not that anyone would remember as much of the old world before the first floods were erased, but during the founding of Petrichor, there was a necromancer who aided in the creation of the city, clearing the dead from the streets and doing tasks humans can't or wouldn't do. While he ultimately died young, likely from side effects of the forbidden craft, his family was given noble status. His secret was buried in the family crypt along with him. Pedwin the Great wrote Greater Ichor Crabs, Beasts of War. In the wastes of Grala, insectoid monsters are a constant threat. Among all of these monsters, one of them stands out as the most dangerous and most numerous threat, not just in Grala, but the whole of Turmoil, Greater Ichor Crabs. Ichor crabs as a species are a problem. They are ambush predators that lurk near water sources, waiting to cull any Kartoff that isn't careful enough to quadruple check every step they're about to take. But the elders of the species, the greater ichor crabs, are free roaming natural disasters. These 40-foot tall, densely armored, psionically adept crustaceans are completely capable of walking headfirst into Kartoff camps, ignoring bullets and spells as they march tent to tent, scooping up the weak and eating them alive as the tribe panics around them. The Kartoff have never once killed one of these beasts and treat them as omens of grave fortune, a sign that the tribe is doomed. This is not a mere speculation made by witnessing a towering crab eat a fourth of your number before walking away into the waste, but a fact, a gruesome truth. If a greater ichor crab shows itself, it means only one thing: the wildlife knows where you are. You have been marked for death. Caldatha, in King Robert's wisdom, has seen fit to capture greater ichor crabs alive and deploy them in war. While they pose the same dangers as in Grala, the immense firepower present in the war zone makes greater ichor crabs a very easy target for extermination. Thus far, only 3 ichor crabs have been stolen away to the war front against the Greenskins. These monsters have done an excellent job, wreaking absolute havoc, but in the end, all of them have met their ends to a daemons. Uh, all, but in the end, all of them have met their ends to daemons. Still, Robert plans to instruct the release of 10 ichor crabs upon Remexian shores in a covert operation to force Remexia to retreat and defend their homeland from psychic kaiju. Thanks to everyone for building together, especially Nepip and Nugget and Predwin the Great, who all posted these in the Shoutout Saturday channel. And thanks to Predwin for sort of doing the challenge every day with me. It's always exciting to see that he's posting every day and consistently writing. He's making some great stuff. Thanks to everyone. Have a wonderful Saturday.